Welcome to the History in Focus channel. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss more videos like this one. Jean Libera, known as the double-bodied man, was born with a parasitic twin, Jacques, attached to his abdomen. He traveled with fairs and circuses exhibiting his rare condition, becoming a well-known figure in the world of oddities. Dennis Rader, known as the BTK Killer, lived a mundane life in his community while concealing a series of crimes noted for the control he exerted over his victims. In his spare time, he wore his victims' clothing, bound himself, and took photos reenacting the positions he used in his murders. These images, found by police, revealed crucial details of his modus operandi. During the investigation, authorities discovered props used by Rader, including masks and accessories for his reenactments. Operating for decades without identification, he taunted the police and press with letters and packages, which eventually provided decisive clues. In 2005, this information led to his arrest, finally closing the BTK case after years of searching. Raymond Robinson, nicknamed Charlie No-Face, was disfigured by a severe electrical shock as a child, losing his eyes, nose, and an arm. His appearance spawned urban legends in Pennsylvania, where locals claimed to see him walking the roads at night. Despite the myths, he lived a quiet life, taking solitary night walks and occasionally chatting with neighbors who knew him. Chris Benoit, a highly respected WWE wrestler, always seemed calm and approachable, as seen in this fan photo taken in a waiting room. No one suspected that later that same day he would commit a horrific crime, murdering his wife, Nancy, and son, Daniel, before killing himself. The tragedy shook the wrestling world and highlighted issues of mental health and chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, in sports. Jeffrey Dahmer kept a 57-gallon drum filled with acid in his apartment, using it to dissolve bodies and destroy evidence. When police raided the home, they found the barrel in his bedroom, along with various objects linked to his crimes. An aquarium in the living room was also noted by neighbors, as Dahmer often blamed the fish for the foul odors emanating from his apartment. Jim Jones smiles among his followers in Jonestown, the Guyana commune where he held absolute power. Behind the happy facade lay a regime of surveillance, punishment, and paranoia. In November 1978, following a visit by a U.S. congressman, Jones ordered over 900 people to drink cyanide-laced punch, leading to a mass murder-suicide that shocked the world. William Richard Bradford appears on the left in a seemingly normal photo with his wife, Cindy, and their newborn, long before he was known as a predator who used photography to hunt. Posing as a professional, he lured women to isolated locations for shoots. Photos found later included Sherry Miller, a bartender Bradford photographed at a campsite north of Los Angeles in 1984, moments before he killed her. Anneliese Michel, a religious German woman, began suffering from seizures and hallucinations in the late 1960s. Convinced she was possessed, her parents authorized 67 exorcism sessions over several months. In 1976, weighing only 68 pounds, she died of malnutrition and dehydration. Her tragic story inspired the film The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Tyler Hadley is pictured holding a cup during a party he threw at his home. Hours before this photo was taken, he had bludgeoned his parents to death and hidden their bodies in the master bedroom, while dozens of teenagers celebrated nearby, oblivious to the crime. Joachim Croll, known as the Cannibal of Duisburg, is escorted by police to reenact one of his crimes shortly after his capture in 1976. He was arrested after human remains from a victim clogged the plumbing in his apartment building. The photos capture the moment investigators walked him through the crime scene to clarify details of the case. In 1979, police found hundreds of photos taken by Rodney Alcala in a Seattle storage locker featuring unknown women in intimate or vulnerable poses. Many have never been identified. Among them was Christine Thornton, who vanished in 1977 and was only identified by family in 2013. Her photo was taken near where her remains were found in 1982, linking her to the serial killer decades later. Rodney Alcala amassed portraits of dozens of women, photographing them with the same detachment he used to select his victims. Many of the women in these images vanished without a trace, and some remain unidentified. Alcala was arrested in 1979 after a lengthy investigation, and his photo collection remains a grim archive that raises questions about the true number of his victims. The explosion of Little Boy over Hiroshima in 1945 created a flash so intense it bleached everything around it. People in the blast radius blocked the light for a split second, casting dark silhouettes on the walls behind them. These nuclear shadows remain because the surrounding surfaces were bleached by the heat, while the protected areas retained their original color. The victims were vaporized, leaving only these permanent shadows as a memorial to the bomb's power. A Japanese soldier walks into the sea at Cape Diadere with a grenade pressed to his head, refusing to surrender to the Australian troops calling to him from the beach. Moments later, the explosion brought a tragic end to the confrontation. Edward Posnell, the Beast of Jersey, terrorized the island for 11 years, breaking into homes wearing a rubber mask and wig. He attacked women and children while disguised, keeping the community in a state of fear. Arrested in 1971 after a chase, he revealed the disturbing costume he used to evade identification. A family photo shows Ronald DeFeo Jr. alongside his parents and siblings before the crime that would define Amityville. In the early hours of a 1974 morning, he killed 6 family members while they slept in their home. The high-profile case later became linked to reports of hauntings, inspiring books, movies, and legends that made Amityville one of the most famous locations in horror history. A mysterious figure standing at the top of the staircase in the Amityville house was captured in a 1976 photo during a paranormal investigation. The image, known as the Amityville Ghost Boy, gained notoriety for its resemblance to one of the brothers killed in the 1974 murders. The photo remains a topic of debate and is one of the most famous records associated with the house's lore. Ed Gein lived in isolation in rural Wisconsin and shocked police by confessing to crimes involving grave robbing and murder. His reclusive lifestyle and odd behavior had drawn little attention until his arrest. When investigators entered the farmhouse he shared with his late mother, they found a chaotic environment that revealed the depth of his madness and squalor. Inside the house, agents discovered items fashioned from human body parts, including lips used as window drawstrings, bowls made from skulls, a wastebasket made of skin, and a suit Gein was constructing. Gloves and a chair cover made of human skin were also found. This macabre collection became the centerpiece of the investigation and inspired horror classics like Psycho and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Women and children are crammed into a room while 2 soldiers take a selfie in the foreground. Taken in Syria, the photo shows prisoners from eastern Ghouta who were later transported to detention centers where many faced severe abuse. Girls play in the Ruidoso River, unaware that on that same day in 1945, the Trinity nuclear test was conducted nearby. The hot snow that fell later was radioactive fallout. Barbara Kent and her friends all developed cancer. All died young except for Kent, who lived to her 30s despite battling multiple bouts of the disease. Genie Wiley was discovered by authorities after years of extreme isolation imposed by her father. From a very young age, she was kept locked in a dark room, tied up for long periods, and prevented from interacting with others. When finally rescued at age 13, she could barely walk, speak, or understand her surroundings. The images depict her first contact with the outside world, following the intervention. After her rescue, Genie became one of the most studied cases in science as experts sought to determine if a child deprived of human contact could develop language past the critical period. While doctors and researchers tried to help her, her father, Clark Wiley, was arrested and questioned by the press, gaining national notoriety. The case exposed shocking details of neglect and abuse, reshaping discussions on child protection. Stephen Griffiths, known as the Crossbow Cannibal, was caught on CCTV in Bradford, England in 2010 while chasing a victim who had fled his apartment. In the footage, he flashes his middle finger at the camera, unaware he was creating decisive evidence against himself. Armed with a crossbow, he targeted vulnerable women, turning his home into a slaughterhouse. 14-year-old Regina K. Walters appears in the final photos taken by Robert Rhodes, a truck driver who kidnapped and killed women while traveling the country. The images show a terrified Regina inside an isolated barn shortly before her murder. The case became one of the most well-known connected to Rhodes, who had equipped his truck with a torture chamber to hold victims captive. With a pentagram drawn on his palm, Richard Ramirez appears in court following his 1985 capture in Los Angeles. Known as the Night Stalker, he left satanic symbols at crime scenes, helping police identify his pattern. During his trial, he maintained a cold, defiant demeanor. Convicted of numerous attacks and murders, he became one of the era's most notorious criminals. In the 1990 on Columbine high school class photo, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold are seen in the upper left corner, making gun gestures at the camera, a detail that went unnoticed at the time. Weeks later, they carried out the massacre, killing 12 students and a teacher, turning the photo into a chilling, ignored warning. Judith Dahl was lured by Harvey Glattman, who posed as a professional photographer to convince women to model for him. Unaware of his violent history, Judith allowed herself to be tied up for the shoot, believing it was part of the direction. Glattman had used this same ruse on other victims, using the photos as part of his ritual before committing murder. Dee Dee Blanchard is pictured with her daughter, Gypsy Rose, whom she subjected to years of fake illnesses, unnecessary surgeries, and isolation, a case of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. In 2015, desperate to escape her mother's abusive control, Gypsy conspired with her boyfriend to kill Dee Dee, exposing the medical fraud and lifelong suffering she had endured. Nazi officers and female auxiliaries relax near Auschwitz, laughing and posing as if on a holiday. The photos are deeply disturbing due to the contrast between their joy and their daily reality, overseeing the torture and extermination of millions. Taken at a staff retreat, the images reveal the shocking normality with which the perpetrators treated their roles in the genocide. Ted Bundy drove a simple Volkswagen Beetle, using it to navigate cities without drawing attention. It was inside this car that he approached and lured victims. When the vehicle was finally seized, investigators found ropes, gloves, a mask, tape, plastic bags, and tools used to restrain women. Each item helped reconstruct the method he repeated across several states. This image captures the final moments of a man before he was sucked into the left engine of an Airbus A320 at a European airport. He had approached the aircraft while the engines were still running, resulting in a fatal accident. Dean Corll, responsible for a series of murders that terrorized Texas in the early 1970s, used sheds and storage lockers to hold victims and hide his torture tools. After his death, deputies in San Augustine County entered a cabin owned by his parents and found boards, ropes, tape, and devices used to restrain and torture young boys. This is the last photo sent by 17-year-old Dalen Pua before he vanished during a hike in Oahu, Hawaii. The image shows dense vegetation and a blurred figure in the center. The boy was never found. The self-portraits of William Utermohlen, painted after his 1995 Alzheimer's diagnosis, document the slow disintegration of his mind. From 1996 to 2000, his once clear style becomes distorted and fragmented, eventually becoming unrecognizable. The series serves as a heartbreaking record of the artist's struggle to hold on to his identity as the disease took over. Ted Bundy is pictured beside his younger brother Rich, who had no idea of his true nature. To his family and neighbors, Bundy was a polite, helpful, and ordinary young man. This boy-next-door persona allowed him to blend into society and avoid suspicion while leading a secret life of serial murder. Daisy and Violet Hilton, British conjoined twins, celebrate their birthday in the 1930s. Joined at the hips, they became famous in traveling sideshows and appeared in films. Their public life generated immense curiosity. One of them even married, though the union was short-lived. The duo toured for decades, becoming iconic figures in the entertainment world. The photo looks like a standard New Year's Eve snapshot, but Reynaldo Dagsa, the photographer, unwittingly captured his own assassin appearing on the left, gun raised. Seconds later, the man, who was robbing a car nearby, shot Dagsa dead in front of his family. The image became crucial evidence leading to the killer's conviction. A cockpit photo from Air New Zealand Flight 901 shows the view minutes before impact. Due to a navigation error, the plane was flying directly toward Mount Erebus, which was hidden by whiteout conditions. Another photo captures passengers in the final moments. The crash left no survivors, and the weather was so severe that rescue teams had to temporarily bury bodies in the snow to protect them from scavengers. A security camera still from a shopping mall shows 2-year-old James Bulger being led away by Robert Thompson and John Venables. The two older boys kidnapped, tortured, and murdered the toddler in 1993. The murderer, known as the Lipstick Killer, gained notoriety for kidnapping and attacking young victims in Chicago, putting police on high alert and drawing national attention. During the manhunt, a message scrawled on a wall was found in which he begged to be caught before he killed again, claiming he could not control his urges. The note helped investigators track him down, leading to his capture in 1946. Robert Landsberg captured these final images of Mount St. Helens moments before the 1980 eruption claimed his life. Dedicated to documenting the volcano, he photographed the approaching pyroclastic flow until the end, then used his body to shield the film. His remains were found days later, and his photos provided a final record of the disaster. Libby German used her cell phone to record a man walking toward her and her friend Abby Williams on an old railway bridge, footage that became key evidence. The video helped police identify Richard Allen, who was later convicted of their murders. Known as the Delphi murders, the case gained global attention due to Libby's quick thinking in filming her attacker. The lunatic chair, used in a Dutch psychiatric hospital in 1938, was designed to keep patients immobilized for hours to manage outbursts. The device reflects the harsh and primitive mental health treatments of the era. Between 1968 and 1971, numerous people in Egypt reported seeing a luminous figure atop the Church of Zeitoun in Cairo. Photographs capture a bright shape many identified as the Virgin Mary. The apparitions drew massive crowds of Christians, Muslims, and skeptics alike, becoming known as Our Lady of Zeitoun, one of the region's most documented mass sightings. A woman in China displays her small feet, the result of footbinding, a practice common until the early 1900s. The custom began in childhood, deforming bones to meet a beauty standard, yet causing lifelong pain and limited mobility. Samuel Little, responsible for dozens of murders between the 1970s and 80s, did not photograph his victims. He drew them from memory to aid investigators. His sketches include Mary Ann, a woman he claimed to have killed in Miami around 1971 or 1972, and a portrait of a young black woman he murdered in Atlanta in 1981. Jeffrey Dahmer looks relaxed next to a classmate in a high school yearbook photo, long before his crimes were discovered. The image offers a chilling contrast between the normal-looking teenager and the serial killer he would become. A beekeeper stands covered in bees, forming a living beard that draws attention for its risk and boldness. This practice is common at events highlighting beekeeping and the environmental importance of bees. To create the beard, a queen bee is placed near the face, attracting the swarm to the participant's neck and chest, resulting in a bizarre and striking scene. Gladys McKnight and Donald Whiteman, both 17, are pictured after being arrested for the murder of Gladys's mother. The couple lured the victim into the house and attacked her with an axe before attempting to flee. In Little Rock, Arkansas, a young woman takes a selfie with her boyfriend visible in the background, pointing a gun at the camera. Posted to Snapchat, the image was taken moments before he used that weapon to kill her. Passengers on Japan Airlines Flight 123 captured these images on August 12, 1985, shortly before the plane crashed into Mount Takamagahara. A structural failure led to the deaths of 520 of the 524 people on board, the deadliest single aircraft accident in history. A survivor reported the plane fell for 32 minutes, during which many passengers wrote farewell notes to their families. Eunice Winstead was just 9 years old when she was photographed with her 22-year-old husband, Charlie Johns, in Sneedville, Tennessee. Married in 1937, they had 9 children and remained together until Charlie's death in 1997. Though legal at the time, the union shocked the nation, but continued for Eunice's entire adult life. Leonarda Cianciulli, the soap maker of Correggio, believed human sacrifices would protect her son during W. Apoukis. Between 1939 and 1940, she murdered 3 women in Reggio Emilia, dissolving their bodies in caustic soda. She turned the remains into soap and tea cakes, which she served to neighbors, cementing her place in Italian criminal history. A photo captures the split second before a Russian Lancet kamikaze drone strikes a Ukrainian multiple rocket launcher. With a terminal speed of nearly 190 km/h, there is virtually no time to react once the drone is sighted. Pete Spence, a feared outlaw of the Old West, operated alongside the infamous McClory brothers. His only known photograph, taken in 1883, captures the cold gaze that terrorized the Arizona Territory. A child is placed in a wicker cage, a device used for punishment in schools during the early 20th century. The method restricted movement to control behavior and was applied as a rigid form of discipline. 2 men with large straw hats covering their faces participate in a traditional Irish wedding. Known as straw boys, they appear as symbols of luck and health for the newlyweds. Their presence is considered a positive omen during the celebration. They walk through the village, interacting with guests and helping to keep ancient traditions alive, creating a curious spectacle for those unfamiliar with the custom. In the Czech Republic, ancient hydrological markers known as hunger stones become visible when the Elbe River's water level drops. Carved by ancestors centuries ago, they warn future generations of drought and imminent famine. Their reappearance signals poor harvests, food shortages, and hard times ahead, a warning from those who survived previous crises. John Wayne Gacy appeared to be a jovial clown at children's parties, but behind the makeup, he was one of America's most prolific serial killers. While entertaining as Pogo, he lured young men to his home to torture and murder them, burying bodies in his crawl space and yard. Responsible for at least 33 deaths, his case remains one of the most shocking in criminal history. An elephant trainer demonstrates a risky stunt by allowing the animal to place its foot on his head during a performance. This type of trick was common in early 20th century circuses, intended to show the absolute control trainers claimed to have. Despite the obvious danger, it was a popular attraction repeated in numerous shows. Apache men advance in a line during a ghost dance ceremony around 1906. The ritual was performed to seek spiritual protection and connect with ancestors, an act of preserving tradition in the face of increasing cultural suppression. Actresses dressed as fairies pose next to a performer wearing bat wings backstage during the 1935 film adaptation of Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. 18-year-old Jolie Callan appears in photos taken by her ex-boyfriend during a hike in Cheaha State Park, Alabama. Minutes after these peaceful shots on the cliffside, he shot her and pushed her off the edge, ending what she thought was just a casual outing. The images became central evidence in the murder investigation. The Luscious Limbs toy, released around 1965, encouraged children to mold and eat candy shaped like human hands, feet, and ears. While seen as a novelty at the time, the concept is viewed as grotesque today. Young women, later known as the Radium Girls, worked painting luminous numbers on watch dials using radium-based paint, a radioactive material widely used in the industry. Instructed to point their brushes with their lips, they ingested small amounts of the substance daily. Many returned home with bodies that glowed in the dark from constant contact with the paint. Prolonged exposure caused severe anemia, bone necrosis, extensive jaw damage, and various cancers, making their case a milestone in industrial safety history. Gerard Schaefer, a police officer and serial killer, took Polaroids of himself with his victims, posing in scenarios he created after kidnapping them. The photos served as both trophies and confessions, revealing the control and cruelty he exercised. These images remain some of the most disturbing psychological evidence ever recovered. Exhausted after 72 hours of continuous combat, in Balamurghab, Afghanistan, 27-year-old Italian Corporal Antonio Matruccio is photographed covered in dust. Asked for a photo after facing heavy fire, he could not smile. His face displays the 1,000-yard stare of someone who has just survived the trauma of war. An ossuary in Havana once served as a tourist attraction where visitors and soldiers posed among unearthed skulls and bones. The piles of skeletons created a macabre backdrop, displayed as a local curiosity. A child poses next to a figure from European folklore known as Krampus, a character used to represent the punishment of disobedient children. Cards featuring this image were common in the early 1900s and were often exchanged during Christmas celebrations. Jewish children walk hand in hand at Auschwitz, guided by soldiers, unaware they are being led to gas chambers. The image captures the heartbreaking loss of innocence amidst the industrial horror of the Holocaust. Gus Waldorf steps into the ring to face a trained bear in an exhibition match in March 1949. Such events were promoted as bizarre spectacles, completely disregarding the risks to both the human and the animal. A Jewish man kneeling before German soldiers is photographed moments before his execution, illustrating the systematic violence of the Holocaust and the persecution suffered by millions. A soldier sprays an Italian home with DDT and kerosene to combat mosquitoes. At the time, little was known about the health risks, so the practice was carried out even with children nearby, despite the product's toxicity. German schoolgirls attend a racial education class taught by a member of the National Socialist Teachers League in 1943. The chart on the wall illustrates the racial classifications and hierarchy enforced by the Nazi regime. The Sarco capsule is a device designed to facilitate assisted suicide. When activated, it floods the chamber with nitrogen gas, rapidly reducing oxygen levels to induce unconsciousness. The method is engineered to ensure a painless death. Blanche Monnier, once a French socialite, was locked in an attic for 25 years by her mother for wanting to marry a poor lawyer. When rescued, she was found near death, malnourished, weighing only 55 pounds, and covered in decades of filth and insects. It remains one of the most brutal cases of domestic imprisonment in history. Here, a baby is pictured surrounded by dozens of alligator hatchlings at a California farm. The parents apparently thought it was a good idea to place the child in the midst of these dangerous animals. A Japanese magazine published this seemingly ordinary photo of an audience, but the tilted neck and rigid expression of one woman create an unsettling effect. The unusual angle raises questions about whether it is a photographic error or something more paranormal. Thousands of Albanians cling to the cargo ship Vlora in a desperate attempt to escape the crisis in their country. Following the collapse of the regime, many risked crossing the Adriatic Sea in search of refuge and better living conditions.